as well as a member of SBEC Air India, and in various assignments in the ERCON International DMRC PFC Consulting Ministry of Jal Shakti. Mr. Ayush Nigam, a young entrepreneur. Ayush is a change maker, a social entrepreneur, believes in for-profit and high-impact models. He is an alumni of IIT Madras, BTech in Mechanical Engineering with specialization in business foundations from Wharton Business School, member of World Economic Forum Food Program India, working at the sustainability and large-scale food security. I would not. I would just like to take away some more time without reading the detailed bio note of these two acclaimed entrepreneurs, because it is all uploaded in our website, and you may visit the website for the detailed thing, because that would mean we can have some more time with our guests. Thank you very much, Dr. Nigam, for being with us, and Mr. Ayush Nigam for being here with us too. I would, the panel really seeks to look at, to discuss some of the issues that recently IGNOU is in a collaborative project with the MSD, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of India, and where we are going into capacity building projects for skilling India. And there are a number of projects and activities which have been planned in that. So here are two entrepreneurs, and here is also IGNOU, which is also in the path of uploading or path of entrepreneurship in ways that IGNOU can provide capacity building and enhance and augment the already the population in India. So one very important aspect in this is to explore the fact that IGNOU has an extremely strong objective for democratizing education and with its agenda of inclusiveness. So we have an agenda for inclusion in all our programs, in the major mandate. So as entrepreneurs, we would like you to discuss with us some of the ways in which entrepreneurship can actually contribute to economic development through skill building and by skilling the right kind of people. Basically, how does one approach skill building from the perspective, because skills have to go and have to be given to the right person, the right kind of skills to the right kind of communities and the right kind of age groups will augment the kind of skilling that will take place in the long run. So, Mr. Nigam, I would like to, Dr. Nigam, I would like to request you to begin the panel discussion. 15 minutes for you to share your experiences and how you began your journey as a civil servant and what made you come to entrepreneurship, and also do reflect with us some of the uniqueness of Indian entrepreneurship from a historical perspective, because I think I would not like to come into this myself, but I would like to hear it from you as a senior bureaucrat, how exactly Indian the background of Indian entrepreneurship. So, Dr. Nigam, maybe start with you.
Sure. And thank you, Dr. Sujata. And it was so aptly you have mentioned at the introduction time the whole ecosystem and how important the entrepreneurship, innovation, and inclusiveness is in the Indian context. And rather, it is also equally important in the global context as well. I would also try to relate it to the objectives of IGNOU, as you have mentioned, on the skill development and what is happening, so that there is a right fit between the requirement of skill sets and the entrepreneurship which is evolving. And very rightly, as you were mentioning, the technology development is taking place in so fast, and I think we have entered into the next spiral of technology development with AR, VR, augmented reality, and also with the 5G coming in, and the enabling environment and ecosystem which is created with the brilliance of mind of Indian people, which is now proven across the globe that we have one of the best brains who can make use of all these development and create these developments. So in this environment, how I would say how critical it is to have a right match of the human resources, skill sets, and the requirement of future. Not requirement of present, not requirement of past, but requirement of future. For example, as I just want to go back to the practical examples and then come back in the same scenario. Like we were having some consulting and trying to scale up the telemedicine. Now, telemedicine in India has been there for a long time, but try to see whether the ecosystem was enabling that. Now, in the just before COVID, the telemedicine was not even a legal activity. A doctor has to physically see the patient, and then only the prescription can be given. All right. And I would like to take the question after we finish it. I think some hand has been raised.
We will. I'd like to request the participants to raise hands only when later after the deliberations are made. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. So so if you see, like in what I was talking about, the ecosystem of telemedicine, I think my thoughts gets distracted on that. So when we were, it was not even legally valid proposition to provide consultation through telemedicine before COVID. Now, subsequently, I think very rightly and in a very fast manner, the government has now allowed telemedicines to be there. So on one hand, if you see how things will convert into real action and taking to the beneficiary, will have multiple, I would say, activities involved in that. Now, one of them was creating right framework of law. Now, simultaneously, when this telemedicine and consultation is done, we need right kind of partnerships. Now, partnership of the government, partnership of the innovators, partnership of businesses and other stakeholders. But equally important or very important is availability of right kind of resources and human resources. Like as we were recently visiting some of the PSC centers in UP where telemedicine has been provided as a CSR activity, with HCL Foundation supporting setting up of 30 such centers in collaboration with the government of UP as a PHC center equipped parallelly with telemedicine consultations, on the spot digital testings. Now those poor population, if you see the dimension of inclusiveness, they were not having even a doctor to visit. Compounders were distributing medicines. Now they can consult the best doctor of the country on the spot, absolutely free. All tests are done absolutely free, and a quality medication or even the medicines are distributed absolutely free on the ground for hundreds of patients per center per day. 1,57,000 patients or the beneficiaries have taken benefit out of this. Now, what is when we need to scale it up? Now, what is required? We don't have an appropriate skill sets to handle telemedicines. Now, that will lag. Now, there is a latency. Now, there used to be earlier a technology latency. Need is I would say demand is there, solution is available, but availability of technology to the end user in a very remote areas was not there. But now, even if the technology is there, say for example with the infrastructure being there, connectivity being there, then we also need the right kind of manpower and right kind of skill sets. Now, if you shift a little bit from here and see what is happening to the drone technology, what will happen to the EVs coming in, and we will need not only the technology for charging stations, but we'll also need the skill sets for that. What will happen to metaverse, which will become a reality? What will become to blockchains, NFTs? Now, do we have, I think that is where, and being a part of government for 35 years and also looking at it as an entrepreneurship within the government has to become, is becoming, I'm not saying it has changed, transformed a lot in last decade, I would say, or definitely last 7-8 years. It has changed a lot. But the government has to, or the syllabus, skill sets which are required to be created have to be futuristic. And futuristic, if we do not create right kind of skill sets now, for what will happen, as you were giving briefly mentioning, suppose there is a metaverse enabled restaurant comes in a place. Now, do we have a technology to maintain it? Do we have the right kind of developers in tier 2, tier 3 cities? No, those are to my mind. I would just mention this at the beginning, at this stage. We'll come back as the questions come in.
Thank you. Mr. Ayush Nigam?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to share your experiences? Mr. Nigam is a young entrepreneur, and as I said, the most, I think, in an era when most of our, at least from my experiences of experience of IIT earlier, I'd seen most of our graduates would actually think of, packing their bags and just running off to US and to get the best job. Here is a young entrepreneur who decided to stay back. And if we see the impressive entrepreneurship initiative that he has taken in an era which is actually, I don't know how you can make out profit in that particular area, but he's trying to do that. So that's the major interest area for all our students, to see this young person who is taking this initiative and not looking. He never looked at the government or any other multinational or any other to create a job for him. He created a job for all the others. So Ayush, it is very, very nice to have you here, and your experiences, I'm sure, will enlighten all our IGNOU learners and all our students who are here to motivate them in this direction. Thank you, Ayush. Would you please share your experience and the blockages you faced, the problems you had, and exactly how you've addressed them? I think a very holistic kind of presentation is requested from you.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Sujata. Is my voice clear?
Yes, it is. Everyone else, is the voice clear, please?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Can hear him.
Yep. Thank you. So I'll just probably start briefly with my journey first, and I'll share the learnings on the way, so that I think it is more clearer as in what kind of challenges, what kind of solutions we kind of came up with, and finally the beliefs that we hold now. So starting back when I was in school, so when I was 10-11 years old, so had this passion that want to do something for the society, was very sensitive as a kid, right? So wanted to do something of all the suffering that we see around us. So that's where the passion came from. So what was very clear on wanting to create some kind of impact to solve this injustice that we see all around us, which I guess as Indians, all of us are very much exposed to. So that's where I think later that passion only grew stronger, and that's where the motivation to kind of do something, even in terms of getting into IIT, the main motivation was nothing else, but the motivation was to do something for the society, right? So everything kind of came out from there for me in life. So once I reached IIT Madras, I think that was a very good turning point for me taking impact ahead, because got a lot of exposure there. of course, attended a lot of talks, had a lot of discussions with peers, with professors, and experts coming into the campus. So I think that gave me a good understanding, and that aspect of that the main aspect of that learning went towards touching the bottom of the pyramid at the roots of where it all starts, right? Like, so basically, what I understood back then was that if you look at urban poverty also, it has its roots in rural poverty, right? Like, there is a lot of rural to urban migration, desperate rural to urban migration that is also happening. Of course, the people who are educated and shifting by choice to cities is probably a slightly different aspect altogether. But if you look at the desperate migration, where they are coming into cities for labor jobs and desperately living in slums, on roads, etc., I think all those aspects are still very, very true, and they still exist. So there's a lot of poverty that kind of exists and has existed, of course, for a long time. Um, and being shifting to from the rural to the urban makes it even tougher for those people to sustain in those slums.
Recording
So,
code?
sorry, Dr. Sujata, you were saying
No,
something?
no, sorry. That was just an.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Right. So basically, realize that I want to do something at large scale to kind of figure out rural poverty, and also realized very soon that rural poverty cannot be looked at in isolation. So we are looking at other aspects of. So of course, it's like various things that economic activities that the rural folk can do, which could mean like agriculture, small scale industry, better value for their produce, etc. All those aspects, of course, are there. However, there are also other aspects which are interlinked, like if we talk about rural infrastructure, education, and all those things, of course, also come into play. But there's also a huge element of environmental sustainability that affects the bottom of the pyramid far more than the top of the pyramid. So that's where even environmental sustainability became something that we became increasingly passionate about and understood that we need to do something about this. Another very important aspect that came glaring to us very, very strongly to our focus was that there are far too many problems to be solved still, right? The tools are coming in, the ecosystem is really developing in India. India is coming out as one of the leaders in innovation and entrepreneurship, especially for the developing world. India is one of the key hotspots for innovation to find the right solutions to developing world problems, right? So a lot of the innovations that happen in India go to countries like continents like Africa, countries like Bangladesh, Southeast Asia, etc. Right? So I think India is becoming very important in the sense of bringing global innovation for solving these major global issues. And that's where when we do something good, when we create something good in India, it is bound to have ripples in the developing world as well. So that is again something good that we uh, can see as of today as innovators in India. Please understand that the impact may not happen very directly, but also very indirectly, because people are looking at us, people are looking at India, people are looking at entrepreneurs, people are looking at innovators, and these innovations are going out and they are impacting many more through other people getting inspired and taking the baton forward, right? So there is a lot of ripple effect that actually happens when we try to solve some problems. Now coming back to my point, where that unfortunately there are still a lot of unaddressed problems, very grave problems, and that's where we all need to take steps forward. However, when we try to start something, uh, as you can imagine, a startup is not a piece of cake, especially when you kind of go for it for the first time. And that's where there are a lot of learnings that you need to kind of upskill yourself on, and you might fail in various aspects. And I think those are things that I also want to share through our journey through various startups. So after completing my BTech in mechanical engineering, I went off to do a few jobs in consulting, strategy consulting, and investment banking, just to gain a little management exposure before setting up startups. So, to be very frank, I think that experience did not help me a lot. What would have helped me far more would have been startup experience, right on, head on, right? And with that exposure, I think running a startup becomes far more easier compared to trying to gain indirect experience of typical corporates and replicating that to startups does not really work very much. So yeah, I think that was an important thing that unfortunately I missed on initially. So after that experience, we set up the Social Innovation Lab. We called it WCG Center for Social Innovation. In this organization, we got in a lot of youngsters, a lot of college students, and a lot of mentors from outside with very depth of expertise in the areas that we were looking at working on. So we started developing various technologies for rural India's economic upliftment. So the technologies like an off-grid cold storage. We were designing this higher efficiency biogas engine so as to make biogas feasible for rural India. We were developing an agricultural machine. We were developing a vertical axis windmill for small households in rural India, especially peninsular India. So we have a lot of wind there. So developing a low cost windmill for keeping on top of your houses and powering the houses and small scale businesses uh, in rural India through that. So a multifold of such very impactful technologies, I would say. We were pretty clear that these technologies are going to have a lot of impact. We traveled a lot of rural India. We traveled north to south. We also went to Bangladesh. We spent 14 days there, visited villages from north, south, east, west of Bangladesh as well. So, so those times were really enlightening for us. We met a lot of experts across the country. So I think a lot of this really helped us understand the context in a lot of depth. But while we are doing all of this, what started happening is even so the co-founder who was looking at so my co-founder who was looking at the investments and fundraise and business partnerships. So he had to quit because of some family pressures. And at that time, we were doing 5 innovations, and a lot of energy was there inside the innovation lab. Yet we realized that we can't really sustain so many innovations at this stage without proper funding, without proper business partnerships, etc. And things started seeming very, very tough. And then we started realizing that taking up so much in your first go is clearly not very advisable. Running a startup takes a lot of energy, lot of focus. Doing 5 innovations at once may not be the ideal direction. Of course, there are other ways to look at it. We could have also looked at just focusing on technology development, and on the other hand, we have a commercialization arm which only looks at licensing the technologies or selling off the technology patents or licenses to bigger organizations to commercialize. So some innovation organizations, innovation startups do take up this model as well. But in general, doing multiple things initially gets very difficult. So one very important thing that I learned on my startup journey is that try to simplify your business because it's going to be very challenging anyway. So have only 1 or 2 key areas where you innovate. You do not innovate on every aspect of the business. For example, we wanted to do a lot of innovation on culture. We wanted to have a very crazy culture, very empowering culture inside. We wanted to have a very deep relationship with our customers who wanted to do a lot of innovation there as well. We wanted to do a lot of innovation on technology, of course. So there were a whole lot of various innovative methods that we are trying to deploy, and those things did not really seem very feasible to us as we progressed. In fact, we also tried to bootstrap this startup. So we were not raising equity based capital because we wanted to kind of not have investors dictate the direction of this startup, especially because we wanted it to be very pure and intent driven. So, because it was a passion driven startup, we believed that we want to make this work without the typical VCs or investors coming on board, and rather leverage grant capital and try to build revenues to run the company. So those were things that we were trying to do. Yet, I think, again, as I was sharing, we took up too many challenges at once, which ideally should not be the case when you're starting off, right? So that's where kind of we couldn't really progress a lot, though we had very amazing innovation going on inside. So moving on, so back in 2015, we realized that so many parallel things are not really working out. Let us focus and set up a startup on one particular technology, and we took up agriculture as our core area, where we took up farmer profit doubling and environmental sustainability, climate change, water pollution, soil degradation matters. So we took up these two major matters, that we want to double the profits of farmers and we want to solve large scale environmental issues that are hugely being caused because of the way agriculture is being done today. So we saw a particular space there because we were meeting a lot of experts and farmers across India and Bangladesh. We had this opportunity to come across this right idea where the scientists had innovated a particular technique of agriculture which could be done at a large scale on a lot of crops. And it had been validated not just in India, but more than 20 plus countries. And scientists from the best organizations, best research organizations across the world had validated that particular agricultural technique. In fact, even governments and organizations like USAID, even Obama was kind of trying to, he visited a place where such pilots were happening. So that was the magnitude of this particular agricultural research, a technique that was coming up. It was called fertilizer deep placement or urea deep placement. Now, this technique, despite its huge benefit, almost being able to double the profits, having huge benefit on various aspects, quality of produce, the protein content, the environmental damage reduction, all these things, right? Yet it was not spreading for the simple reason that there were no machines or technologies to make it feasible for the farmer to deploy, right? As simple as that. The agricultural technique cannot scale unless this small bridge is built between the scientist and the farmer, right? So that's where we understood that this is what we need to do to create that large impact that we want to have. As engineers, of course, this seemed like a very straightforward problem to solve. So we got a grant. We got this grant from a US organization with the support from Tata Chemicals. So we were talking to this expert from Tata Chemicals who told us about this whole concept also in the first place. So he supported us to get a grant from this US organization. In fact, Tata Chemicals also supported us later. They gave us two more grants once that grant ran out. But they could see like how dedicated we were to creating such an impact. So I think that really helped. So here I would like to just quickly add one more important learning. So the importance of these various partnerships and collaboration and being open to talk to the right people out there in the ecosystem is super critical. To be very frank, in various aspects before the time that I'm talking about, there were several things that we did not really truly understand about the startup ecosystem and how startups work. So as I was sharing with you, had I worked in a startup before and seen how things work there, I think it would have been far easier for me to have not made those several mistakes that a typical startup ecosystem teaches you, right? So that's where, if you are well plugged in and interacting with the right kind of incubators, going to the right conferences, meeting a lot of people, meeting experts constantly. You are meeting the end customer constantly. If you're constantly doing that a lot, you are bound, you are probably you will be having much lesser failures comparatively. And that's where I think being very closely in touch with strong ecosystem players like Tata Chemicals, our mentors in various places, also helped us not just in the right guidance, but also started helping us in the funding and investment side. Especially because we were looking at bootstrapping our startup, we were not looking at raising money from a typical VC, venture capitalists, etc. Such grant capital was gold for us, right? Like we had to leverage that to develop our technology. As I shared, the inhibition for VCs or equity-based investments or such kind of capital was mainly because we wanted to maintain control, to maintain the purity of this organization, the pure intent of this organization. So that's that. So we tried to do that. So I'll quickly move ahead. So we did develop the technology over various iterations. Another very interesting thing happened when IDEO, the world's best design company, so this company is based out of San Francisco. They are present across the world as well. So they are renowned for the best design in any aspect. It could be an electronic product, it could be mechanical engineering product, or even a service as well. So any service. So they have been in Apple sort of design, Nike, or even service based governments also for helping government solve problems. So system design or a product design or whatever. So how does that happen in the best way? And that is what taught us a lot in terms of how we can do innovation far better than we were doing it earlier, right? So these guys somehow liked our product. They came to know about us through someone else, through some other investors and all. And so these guys reached out to us, and we luckily got a project with them. They came down to India. They worked with us twice, spent more than 1.5 months with us overall in total. And we built a lot of these models and products with them. So what we understood is the core fundamentals of design thinking. And the second aspect, you can also go through this book called Lean Startup. So the Lean Startup by Eric Rice is a wonderful book that talks about how you can do rapid iterations of whatever you want to develop by getting the customer insights as quickly as you can, right? As dirty as you can. Just make something. Even IDEO did this, that they would just make pictures. They would just draw some images and take it to farmers quickly, right? Immediately. And then tell them, like, would you like this? Or would you like this? Or would you like that? If so, then what would you like? And they would try to design a questionnaire that would be very non-leading. So I'm not getting into the whole fundamentals of design thinking, but I just want to highlight that going through such a process ensures that the design that you do can be highly rapid, low cost, and also customer centric, that is bound to succeed. Otherwise, what we typically end up doing, what we also used to do initially, we would keep designing. We would worry that, okay, if my product is not perfect, how do I take it out there to the market? People will think that our product is not good and they will not use it, etc. Right? Like, so all these fears of trying to perfect your product and taking it to the market, those fears keep playing, and we never validate the market as rapidly and as well that we should. So I think these both the Lean Startup book and design thinking hugely helped us once we came to know about these aspects from IDEO, this organization. And of course, working with them hands-on was really amazing to see how the world's best design company actually goes about designing, right? Like, and getting her whole team upgraded to these things. One very interesting aspect again that happened was that we brought in our end customer into the R&D team itself, right? Into the core design thing. How do we do that is basically getting on hiring farmers, typical farmers, that to very low income farmers, youngsters who were energetic to do something. We brought them in. We taught them the fabrication. We taught them a lot of design and all these things. Some of them also worked with the IDO team, and then kind of really upskilled. But once they upskilled, the value that they got into the products was like very, very high level, right? So I think that aspect of getting your customer, especially if you are not a typical customer of your product. Now, if say for example, it would have been a food product, right? Like if I like eating say Chinese and I design an innovation for some Chinese food, for example, then of course I can be a customer myself, and all of us in the team can very easily add value to that. But if it's something that we're designing for farmers and I don't have a farming background at all, then it is but natural that we must have such kind of customers into the team, into the design cycle itself, and not just as outsiders. So I think this again was a very important aspect for us. So I'll move on. So one very critical learning over this journey of Distinct Horizon, the startup of the agricultural innovation that we are doing. So essentially, just to give you a quick highlight, so basically these are machines, as I was saying, that deploy the fertilizer deep placement or urea deep placement practice that I was talking about, which is basically at the root zone of the plant. You deploy much lesser fertilizer and you are still able to increase the productivity significantly by 20-25%. We are able to reduce the cost of farming, increase the productivity, overall leading to almost doubling the profits of farmers. So we had such machines to deploy these scientific practices and hence placing things properly. So we had developed these machines very well. We had done a lot of iterations. We tried to spread them across India. We went right after we had developed these products. We took them to 6 states across India and took them to farmers to quickly test. Of course, we were doing a lot of design cycles before that as well. But once they're actually ready to fully run on ground, so we took them to 6 states. We got a lot of data validated. We also got a lot of partners to support us. So here the importance of collaborations like so we were also doing a lot of foundation partnerships like Syngenta Foundation. We also worked with government bodies, say, various NGOs as well, and some individual farmers as well to get all these pilots done. We started working with Tata Trust also later to get more pilots. And all these things helped us in 2 ways, right? Of course, one is to validate the results and gaining confidence, both from our angle and from the customer angle, but and to iterate from there, get more feedback, but also for getting validation of our product from organizations that have a far stronger reputation in the industry, right? So those kind of collaborations really help. Do not hesitate as an entrepreneur to quickly go out there and get that support and try to talk to 50 people. You will get support at least from 5, right? So that's how it is. So very proactive action on meeting the right set of people without hesitating is very important. And that's where I think, again, the point that I was making earlier of being connected to the right ecosystems from the starting is something that is very, very essential. So several incubators or something would really help you in kind of connecting to the right organizations. Like Dr. Sujata is very wonderfully connected with a lot of people who can add a lot of value. So connect to the right people, ask your questions, try to figure out who can help you and try to take their regular support to figure out, because there are a lot of problems, a lot of challenges that come on the way. So, yep. So moving on. So at Distinct Horizon, I think one of the very critical learnings that we learned towards very recently last year. So we had been constantly trying to innovate on models to figure out the right channels to sell to farmers and entrepreneurs on the ground, right? Because the machines need to go there and then they are kind of either rented out or given on a service. But we were looking at selling our machines to the entrepreneurs or large farmers or other organizations who can come in. And that became a challenge. We were trying through various directions, even through government. We have national level subsidy on our product. So government has been supporting us very well. Government has been very supportive. We also got several big organizations, as I've been mentioning, to back this technology, take it out. Yet, the big challenge of selling to the village entrepreneurs, the rural entrepreneurs, or the farmers is not an easy challenge. No matter how much support you have at the back, selling to the end customer for us is clearly a challenge because the end customer does not typically come from a very well off or the mindset of investing a lot into such things. So that became a huge bottleneck for us. So then we understood that the game is the whole the model here is something that really needs to be looked into, right? So the model is not working if we are trying to sell this only as a lump sum that give us the upfront money, we'll give you a machine and that's it. That's your problem. Then how you kind of run this machine beyond that. So this model was not working, even though we tried various channels to make this model work, right? So that's where we kind of came back. We understood that the farmer were very, very happy to rent it out. In fact, what we did is we did some experiments. We took out some machines. Our people, our employees went down to the grounds. They started giving our machines on rent to various farmers and started collecting money from them. So what we understood is the whole psyche of that whole ecosystem is very favorable for paying as you go, right? Like paying per acre, paying per hour, or whatever. They're completely fine with that. There's no issue in getting your payments as a service model. But the challenge comes in that if we as a technology company start focusing on ground service as our core thing, then how do we innovate? Because then it becomes a whole different ballgame. And that's not our expertise. For experimenting, it was fine. But for going down to the ground, becoming a service company ourselves did not seem our cup of tea. And I think the wise thing again there to do is collaborate, right? So basically looking at the right collaborations. So we started collaborating with the right organizations. So like, for example, organizations like Dehat, if you might have heard, we are kind of trying to talk to them. There are organizations like Agri Vijay, who we have collaborated with, several organizations, Farmshine, and yeah, one organization, I'm forgetting that name. So that organization is also doing really well. So basically, iCart and all these organizations are really helping us. EM3 is a very prominent organization. We are tying up in this direction. So figuring out a model where you can have the partners to kind of scale this, give out a good model for pay as you go sort of a thing. For that, what we have also done is we have added IoT, Internet of Things. So essentially, we are connecting the devices to through a mobile app, so that we can monitor the usage of the device, and hence we can charge based on the usage of wherever the device is, right? Like, so we can charge per hour, or we can charge per acre, or we can do all of that because we have technology built into these machines that gives us a very quick feedback on how it is used. So building in these small, simple technologies really helped us to enable a service model at a much larger scale, and then bringing on the right collaborations. So these are ways and models that really unlocked the potential of the technology. Otherwise, it was becoming a very challenging affair to sell this machine to farmers. And that's why I just wanted to highlight, please try to question. It's not just about the product. It is also about the model. It's also about the market. It's also about the channel using which you reach the ground. And for all of those, being very open-minded and rapid to test new methods and test new directions, as even the lean startup book also teaches us a lot of this aspect. Iterate very quickly, try very quickly, fail quickly, and then come back to the drawing board, right? So create your hypothesis, and all that also becomes far more effective if you are constantly talking to people who have the expertise in this industry. So again, a very essential point, right? Like which we were not doing a lot in between. So that's why I'm sharing all of this, because we have made all these mistakes repeatedly. So that's that. So one quick final learning that I would also like to highlight from Distinct Horizon is that it is also about the nature of the technology that you work on in today's day and age, right? If you are working on more disruptive, the current day technologies, which are AI, IoT sort of stuff, or blockchain and stuff like that, then there is far more acceptance to kind of scale those technologies. You get much more support from investors and various organizations. It becomes much easier because it is more disruptive. But when we started off as a mechanical engineering innovation company, it became pretty challenging for us. And that's where the addition of technology, as I was sharing IoT and AI that we wanted to build on and get that data and then also support a service model and kind of innovating on all those things then helps you to really market this far better, sell this whole concept far better in the whole ecosystem. So that's been something very, very important. And that's what leads me into the second startup. So we set up PureScan AI in 2019. And so this startup was again done with a friend from IIT Madras, a junior from IIT Madras. So we worked together to kind of solve this food safety issue. So right now it is very difficult to test your food, right? Like you can't do it anywhere. So we are developing these small handheld devices which can immediately tell you. So you just put the food inside and it immediately tells you, okay, it has this much chemicals or toxins and stuff like that, right? So that really disrupts the whole food value chain by giving the power in the hand of all these the end consumers or the retailers or everyone to really check for good produce, right? Right now it's just like how it looks, and that's all the price is based on, right? Like in many cases. So that's where we want transparency to help the right quality, as in the for health purposes. We want transparency to come into the food value chain. So this is something that we did at PureScan. And again, just quickly sharing that because it was mostly into AI, so we were leveraging very heavily AI and electronics and spectroscopy as a science. We were leveraging these high-end technologies to solve these food issues, and we were working a lot with B2B players also, farmers as well, but also B2B. So that's where we are getting a lot of traction and support from major ecosystem players much more quickly than we got at Distinct Horizon. Okay? So I just want to share with you as potential entrepreneurs that working on technologies that are more of today's day and age, more of the digital age, will help you to gain more traction, gain that support of the ecosystem. The second thing that we also did at PureScan was that we realized that running a bootstrapped startup is a huge challenge, especially if you are doing something that is very capital intensive, because we were making bigger machines and trying to run a bootstrap startup on doing such a thing was probably not the best idea, right? We got a lot of grants, we got a lot of support, yet I think running a typical investor-led company could be more faster and much more easier when we do the first thing, right? So maybe later we might want to go there as again, but as of today, I am again, and so there are both sides, right? Like I'm definitely not advocating for either or. Bootstrap still has their benefits, yet I now I am at a stage where I am open to investors wanting to scale some impact quickly, and beyond that, maybe later, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, we still might want to create something from the wealth created from these startups that can be bootstrapped on our own and run something that is very, very fundamentally pure and impact driven. But for now, we are trying to kind of balance the two and trying to create big impact, but with also aligning with how investors look at things and trying to work with them to bring impact at scale, because otherwise scale is not coming in. So that's where we kind of try to identify this aspect as well. So I think I've taken a lot of time, but finally I'll just try to wrap up with one key aspect. So through all this journey, there have been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of challenges thrown at us. The biggest strength that I think we have learned is the team and the togetherness that stands at the toughest of times. And you may have as big challenges thrown on you, but if you are together and as a unit, I'm not just talking about co-founders here, I am talking about the whole team, because we feel the whole team is are like co-founders, are the team, right? And that's where we talk to everyone. We are like everyone with at a completely equal level. And when we do that, they all stand for us together and we all stand for each other together. And at that time, it becomes much more easier because we are able to take the tough storms together. So we are able to talk it out. The toughest of times seem much more easier. Of course, inside is the first thing, that the strength comes from the inside. But also outside, we have focused on building very deep relations and bonds that have been far beyond just typical sort of transactional relationships. We have tried to build bonds that are deeper, and they have helped us to understand what those right decisions, right steps could be at the tough scenarios. So I think all those things really help, and building a strong internal foundation with the right culture, empowering culture, and really helping people to unleash their true potential, because every individual has very unique true magic that I like to call. And it's just that ki most of us have not yet discovered our magic. Most people have not, unfortunately, in today's world, because it becomes very regular, run of the mill sort of life that we have to live, of jobs or this or that, like the responsibilities that we have. And that's where it kind of evades us. And the whole schooling system does not help us identify our uniqueness truly. And I think that's where, as entrepreneurs, I think one of the very high responsibility that we can take is of helping people identify their trueness, their magic, supporting that, nurturing that in whatever ways we can, because that is where the multifold dedication and contribution of people really jumps to a whole different level. And that's where I think, as a team, that is the strongest strength that we can have to take on the biggest challenges and solve the biggest problems. And being that agile to go out and every time we have a challenge, run out, figure out the problem somehow, talk to 10 people, talk to 50 people, get answers, get solutions. But we need a lot of um, ruggedness and strength to persist through all these challenges. And I think the togetherness gives a lot of that. So yeah, thank you so much. Sorry for really exceeding my time. Yeah, I just went into the flow.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think we just heard an enlightened entrepreneur speaking to us, and all the best, of course, on behalf of IGNOU for your venture that you have taken. But I would, before I'll lay the floor open for questions, and please, some of you may even, if you raise your hands, we'll take the ones who raises the hand, or else you can also write it in our chat box. But since we spoke about the enlightened entrepreneurship part of it, I think, Mr. Nigam, you're so correct. Identifying the right, the right area of intervention, which is sometimes where you really have to go beyond yourself, beyond, and into the realm of a service mode. And if you see the kind of heritage that we've had, India as a heritage, most of our entrepreneurship, models that can be brought out even from pre-independence time have all moved for a purpose or for a value which is much higher than themselves. And that's when, I guess, the rest of the success, the monetary thing, all these things, I guess it follows. But those things can only be, can never be the only issue involved, because ultimately the outcome of it will always be decided by how many lives you have touched with that particular project. I mean, going back to Dr. Nigam, are you there?
Yes, please.
Yes. Dr. Nigam, do we have any raised hands here?
I think Karthik has raised hand, I think, and the Kia was earlier there. If any questions, they can.
Are you there, Kia and Karthik? Would you like to? Kia, okay, so Karthik Pal, are you here? Would you like to? take up your question now?
No, ma'am.
No, no, ma'am.
No.
Did you? All right. So, Kia, are you there? The floor is open for questions, and our academics are also here, of course. So, Dr. Nigam, since we will wait for Kia Banerjee, are you here? We could take your question now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, I am here.
Okay. So, would you like to?
No more question, ma'am. I like the lecture,
Okay.
but
Yes, I think it was yeah, okay. So you had questions right in the beginning, even before you heard the
that
lecture.
is my fault. I raised my hand.
No, that's all. No, there's no fault.
Okay.
We all would like to know, and these experiences are so invaluable from what they're sharing. So, Dr. Nigam, we're coming back to you since you are here, and from the perspective, I think some of the things Mr. Ayush Nigam has highlighted, which was, to identify the right skill sets and also how you bridge the gap between the scientist and the farmers, the lowest end thing. This I feel is a very significant, study or whatever, a learning for even for the way IGNOU is going to take up issues, because since we are trying to identify programs which are going to be best suited for the right, so that we can bridge that gap, and we identify those skill sets which are going to be most appropriate, so that when you can't expect the scientist sitting in the laboratory to come and give it to the things. We have to have these middle range skills which are going to keep this continuum of flow. So that is one of the issues which is coming up from Ayush very strongly. And I would of course, I mean, since we don't have a question coming up here, I'd just like to request you to give us some of your observation, as a kind of an historically understanding how entrepreneurship grew, and what were the how do you see entrepreneurship in India from maybe I will say just right after independence to what, because we do have a number of very, very successful, companies and initiatives and enterprises like the Tatas and the Birlas, and these were pre-colonial initiatives taken up by small, very humble individuals from small areas who build it up to this level. So these kind of, do you see the future as small startups, or do you see this future of entrepreneurship as having much more huge ventures, like maybe big ventures, or do you see these small startups all adding up into maybe a mushrooming of small ventures or to a big?
I think, Dr. Sujata, very interesting question. And I think when you say post-independence or the recent past history in India, I would say it's a much longish if you scan from the time of ancient period till now. Now, India has been the hub of innovation in those days. When we say zero, lot of innovations. If you see
so
Agast Muni,
Absolutely.
the entire Ayurveda,
Right.
the lot of books have been written. The travelers used to come to India. Now, from that era, which was an era of innovations, disruptions, and also the creating or giving gift of new innovations to the globe. Now, from that golden era of India, we entered historically to the two segments which probably taught us the compliances, not the creativeness. So, creativity got somewhere hidden under the compliances and control. And that was the era of the Mughal period and subsequently the era of the British period. So we forgot the innovation and the entrepreneurship. That is what I personally feel. And after independence, it took a lot of time to come back to that mode of innovation. And though we have proven that wherever Indians have gone, even in earlier times, also in America and everywhere, they have contributed so much, whether it is NASA or it is the Google or the big organizations across the globe, I am saying, but could not reach to the top at that time because that entrepreneurship within the organization or otherwise was gradually coming back in its from the dormant form to a more active form. And that is where Obama also recognized at that time creating India as innovation hub for solving the problems of Africa. And he was more concerned about that. So innovation hub, feed the future mission, finding something from India what can be done globally was the acceptance of or recognition of innovativeness, in inherent innovativeness which was lost somewhere, which has been in the DNA of the country. Now, what is for the future from now on? When we are having about 100 unicorns per year coming up, and we have 77,000 startup from 2015 onwards, when on 15th of August 2015, the Startup India was launched. So it is a great boom which is taking place. So what we probably see the future, as you have mentioned, it is not just the small organizations, but thousands of unicorns are likely to come. And those thousands of unicorns will create huge impact. Then crores and crores of our population is going to be affected or getting benefit out of the value of such innovations. And we will be giving those benefit to the across the globe through the entire, I would say, world. Those benefits will go. Now, what is happening in India right now, and the use of IT or the technology or drone, we have surpassed what was happening in America earlier. Now, what people coming from America to India see, you have got everything online, and we still have a paper-based COVID certificates. So this is the changing time where we are showing and we are entering into the, I would say, last round of the race. Just like in a relay race, we are gradually crossing every big country and coming forward and saying we can lead the world. So that is possible only through the vehicle of those innovations and different disruptive technologies. And one thing very important is in this time, and I am very, very concerned about that, and that is what we all need to be bothering about that we do not, as happened in 1984 onwards, we were too skewed and thinking IT is the only one thing which will solve all problems. And what has happened, we were doing those all type of changes and contribution in a very, very, I would say, subset of the entire landscape. So we should not forget Bharat. We should not just do innovations for India and America. Now, if that is to be taken care of, the innovations have to generate from the tier 2, tier 3 cities and also from the rural India. And that is what, as Ayush was saying, involving and engaging those people to be there. Now, if we create a technology, like say even, I'm just not mentioning names for any other purpose, say Infosys, some innovations taking place, developing a technology to be used by the rural India, then we may imagine their concerns in a limited way. But if we engage them or involve them from day one of development of technology, and that is what IDEO does, as he was mentioning in this case, or that is what IDEO does for Apple, the user's perspective, and particularly those users' perspective who we can't imagine a tribal person living in Bastar area, how will that person use that technology? So if they are part of development, it will be much more meaningful to them to ultimately use it.
That's so correct. I think we have a question from Dr. Ajay Behra from IGNOU, and I'm going to take this question right now. But I just can't help but continue from what Ayush had said, he said there's something lacking in our schooling. Nobody really told us where to look for, what I said, what is there, how I can contribute. Nobody really, and even maybe earlier, even a few years, even years back when I did my schooling, even then nobody told us exactly where our strength lay and thing. So I think in order it's a very cycle and a very systematic direction that I can see. We need to rethink the educational framework in a completely different way. Like you're saying, bring back history, remind people why they should think that India is a natural hub of innovation and enterprise right from prehistoric area. It's nothing. Innovation is not something which we are doing today, and it is not an Western, category which has been suddenly brightening up the Indian minds and thinking that we need to go for innovation because that is what Obama thinks for us or anybody else thinks for us. Because the educational framework will have to bring this back to our common memory, and it has to create that framework through which our children can then know that yes, I'm capable of doing this, and not really subservient to some other organization or some other institution making up jobs for us, and you just go and fit yourself into those jobs, and if you're not fitting into those jobs, you're out of it. In the same way as agriculture, for example, there was a period of time, and like you're saying, rural urban migration, it's primarily happening not because of anything, because of low self-esteem attached to farming as a whole. Whereas these are the farmers were the ones who had this ultimate knowledge. The farmers were the ones who were holding this whole thing, and the society had the audacity of pointing fingers and putting them right into the marginalized category. So they've lost it out. These are part of our educational framework which needs to reflect on these areas. Dr. Behra, will you please come on board and give us your question, please? Dr. Behra.
Yeah, hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible? Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. My question is very simple one. My intention to ask the question is whether we are talking about startup and all the technology-based things which need to be implemented in the Indian setup. But the thing is whether when we are thinking about the startup, whether there is a pre-orientation program or any training program really required to get involved in the startup program, number one. Number two, if we are talking about agriculture and farming, etc. At the rural places, what I have seen personally, that we have asked, scientists or agricultural scientists have asked to utilize, fertilizers. But the farmers have really do not aware about how much, quantity. I'm talking about quantity. It really need to be put, and they are without having certain knowledge, they are utilizing so many quantities of fertilizers or medicines, for which every rural areas now they are facing a real problem, that is a health problem. Everywhere there are gastric problem or gastroenterological problems or heart problems or kidney patients, gallbladder stone, so many things, even cancer patients. So whether startup can do in this area or not? Thank you, sir.
Yep. So firstly, I think the first question that you have mentioned on the chat as well. So for that, definitely, Dr. Behra, I think it's most important that we learn on the go. So parallelly learning is most critical. Of course, doing some courses would definitely be very, very advisable. So what I mean is not to not do the courses, but do those courses and parallelly try things on. So courses of all forms could be done. Of course, IGNOU has very good courses. There are also something on Coursera or even quick learning, shorter things also. Maybe there are certain skills that you want to learn. So very quickly, just checking up some reading material or books or YouTube videos and doing that, and learning also in the form of meeting the right advisors, right mentors. So I think learning could come in various forms. And I think it is important that it needs to be very, very dynamic. And for that aspect also, I think it is important to connect to the right people who can also guide you to the right forms of learning that can be relevant to that particular problem. Because if these things are very new to us, then sometimes we get slightly lost in the wrong directions of learning. Also, that has happened with me earlier, as I was sharing. But when we kind of meet certain people, they tell us, no, you have to learn about these aspects first. That aspect can wait, for example. So I think a lot of that happens when we and as you were sharing, like in all kinds of industries, of course, there's a lot of relevant learning that we will have to do. So the only thing to truly understand whether it makes sense to do what we are doing, the best way to do that is actually to dive in and understand in depth that industry, the context, meet a lot of people and research. So we also felt very strongly about this method of sprints. So wherein we define particular objectives for a week or for 2 weeks or whatever, and we write it down. And then we write down some major objective, timeline, and the key questions that we have in our brains to solve that problem, right? Like to what we don't understand about this right now. So we go with that. We meet the relevant, the best possible industry people that we can possibly. Best does not only mean the biggest. Best could be most relevant, and of various categories, not just of one kind, but of multiple kinds. Say if you're doing something in healthcare, then it's not just that we need to meet the doctors, but we also need to meet the doctor, maybe the pharmacist, maybe the individual, etc., or various sets of the whole ecosystem. So once we meet all of them and really understand their context, I think things open up much better. And I think with that orientation or training, if we may call it, we will be able to be much more successful in whatever we do, in whichever direction that we take up as well. Entrepreneurship as a general subject, of course, is great to learn, and there are a lot of things that you will learn in a generic sense as well, for sure.
In addition to that, I would also like to mention that self-learning, and the way, as Ayush was mentioning, it may also be prudent to join an incubator, because that will provide you the right kind of fraternity, which will also simultaneously help. And there are very, very focused programs which will help an entrepreneur to learn all that what is required to be there. So all basics are there. Rest of it based on more open-ended learning. So one structured, one open-ended probably will be a good combination. With respect to the second question which you have mentioned, I think definitely the farmers need that kind of education. And that is what is coming with the new technology which is going into the agriculture sector. A lot of scanning, drone, right kind of, I would say, fertilizers or the pesticides which need to be put. And that is where the multiple, I would say, various startups are coming up, and every one of them is helping in making agriculture more sustainable and improving or enabling farmers to have that knowledge by use of these technologies.
So there is
thank you, sir.
There is another question which says, it's by Rajesh Kumar Pandey, says, can we have startups without technology?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Now if you look at it, startup, now we should necessarily have innovation? No, not necessary. When we say as per startup being an enterprise without innovation or without a technology as well.
Yes.
Now even trading is in a startup. Yes. We don't have anything into that. Now if you see combining various dots,
yes,
the technology of somebody else, that is outsourced. So it is basically, we may have two types of innovation. One is technology innovation, and another is process innovation. Most of the time, there is a combination of both technology and process innovation in any startup. But you may also have no technology, only process, and process innovation. That's very much possible.
Absolutely.
Some raised question has Rajesh.
Rajesh Pandey, Rajesh Kumar Pandey.
Sir, my question was due to it because there are so many still places in India where we don't have the technology, particularly no electricity help, no technology, no new things over there. So where these students or anyone, maybe a very layman, he can start. Yes, you were quite right in mentioning that without technology also we can have the startup. Thanks for it, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Yes, I just want to add to that.
Yeah.
So in the context of technology, also I would like to add, like, definitely, it's not necessary. It is more important that it is relevant than being way too high tech, and whether the customer really wants to also pay for it. Because if you're talking about entrepreneurship, you're not talking about a NGO, then it's also an important question whether there is a business model around it that actually works. So I think those questions are also really important. And if people are willing to pay for a service, support, innovation, whatever form it is, innovation may not be just a technology innovation, as Dr. Nigam was rightly pointing out. So it's definitely open. And even if you look at it, even technology is a very, very broad terminology, right? Like, what it could also mean is even in the sense of a very local, rural innovation, that someone could understand the problem and create a jugaad sort of a thing. It is very highly in lines of technology innovation, and actually solve the problem at the local stage, local level. So I think there's a lot of interesting technology and non-technology innovations that can add a lot of value. Most importantly, is it relevant to the sector and the area and the customer would be really important. How scalable are they? Technology, of course, has a little edge, has a strong edge when it comes to scalability in many aspects. Of course, certain times it may not be. It may not be as scalable as some service model that is just relying on some existing technologies or relying on some existing frameworks in the ecosystem. So even certain other innovations might be far more scalable, even though they're non-technology led. But typically technology has a little edge in that sense. One is scalability. Number two, a technology-led startup, of course, has some benefit when it comes to investors investing in IP. So some unique patent technologies that the company has. So of course, the investors look at that also as a asset, as an important asset that the company has to grow. So it does play a role, of course, in today's day and age. But yes, it's definitely there are a lot of things to do otherwise as well.
So just a last. So will it be okay to say that technology need not be the main driving factor or the main epicenter of the thing, but then once a startup is initiated, then you have technology to give it a galloping edge? Because say supposing, like you said, even a ration shop or somebody starting a new kind of a shop, and then you integrate Paytm into that system, and then you have you probably even start thinking about about an online delivery option or online choosing of delivery option. So somewhere it begins as need not start as a technology based initiative, but once you are into it, technology can give it a kind of an edge to take it further in a like you said, to scale it up in a more effective manner. I mean, this is coming.
Yes.
This is just an imagination for someone who's never tried any kind of entrepreneurship itself. So
that's a wonderful point. Yes.
And thank you very much. So I think we're almost reaching. There's just 3 minutes there, and I think there are a lot of people who've joined us here. And if there's any other questions that you would like to have, or else I would like to request Dr. Behra. Dr. Behra, our Assistant Regional Director from IGNOU Kolkata Regional Center. And of course, would you please like to deliver the vote of thanks for our guests?
Yeah, please. Thank you, madam. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of IGNOU Regional Center Kolkata and my own behalf, I would like to thank both the eminent speaker who have shared their experiences, real experiences with us. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. A.K. Nigam sir, who has spared some time to share his experiences and valuable suggestions.
Mr. Pandey, please put your switch off your mic.
Yeah, Rajesh Pandey sir, please mute your audio. Yeah. Then I would like to thank Ayush Nigam sir. Really, he has deliberated a very, very important lecture, rather experiences, and really he has some physically, personally, and I mean overcome all sorts of problems, and now he has come to the point where he wanted to be. So thank you, sir, very much for your experiences sharing with all the participants present over here. 57 participants were here who are from the different colleges, professor, assistant professor, associate professor, and teachers of different institutions, academic counselors, coordinators, and IGNOU faculty members, academics, and staff of the IGNOU Regional Center Kolkata. I would like to thank all the participants over here, and I definitely can say that this type of panel discussion would definitely increase our awareness and motive to reach the startup programs, and we can all together we can reach, or we can drive India to a certain point where startup will be the only solutions of different remote areas problems. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So nice. Thanks. It's our pleasure basically to be here, and so nicely organized. Thank you very much for inviting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Wonderful initiative.